I'm super glued here to Trader Joe's. I'm asking Trader Joe's to stop selling produce peddling on poultry and stop profiting off of suffering.
Chickens deserve medical attention!
Tell me you've never taken care of chickens before without telling me you've never taken care of chickens. Chickens are huge assholes to each other, and taking them to the chicken doctor isn't going to make them any nicer. Also, I hope that glue was vegan. They checked that, right? But in the latest season of the most annoying people on the internet, we have activists displaying their fetish for pasting themselves to shit in public. You have people gluing themselves to expensive cars, or there are people who are more direct and like gluing themselves to the road. And for some reason, they keep getting rescued from this self-inflicted problem. I don't know why they're setting the Trader Joe's guy free. Just leave him there. That arm's going to get super uncomfortable from being in that position after about 30 minutes. In fact, let's try a little social experiment. Let's see how long it takes for this guy to get hungry enough to try raw chicken. Because the implication of their protest is like daring you to not feel sorry for them when they do retarded stuff. Or they're threatening you with being annoying if you don't unstick them. But if you want this to stop, then the answer is to call their bluff. I mean, if you've been on Twitter for any amount of time, then you know the second that people stop putting up with their bullshit, the activists cave almost instantly. Here's one of my favorite moments from some people who think it's a good idea to block the road.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Don't move!
We have no weapons at all! We're environmental protesters!
This has all the self-awareness of someone sucker punching you in the face, followed by them crying when you strike back. You're not being peaceful. You're trying to force people into your ideology by being a public nuisance. So don't be shocked when those who are unhappy with your bullying tactics try to move you out of the way. The funny thing here is that it looks like this sign says private jets, so they're protesting fossil fuels as they force this whole line of people to sit there, probably with their cars running if it's hot outside, for God knows how long. The environmentalist groups aren't sending their best.
Women did not get the vote by voting.
I guess men voted for them to have the right to vote, so you're welcome?
It is time for deeds and not words. It is time to just stop oil.
Do these people realize how many will die if the world stopped using oil tomorrow? Our whole economy is based on oil. The great thing is that when these activists spread their luxury beliefs, it's the poor, who they pretend to advocate for, that suffer the most. But I think people are missing some context here for why the activists protest like this. Now, I know a lot of you are going to say it's because they're mentally ill, and yes, that is a part of it. Mentally ill people are those who refuse to accept reality on reality's terms, which is why they can be so easily tricked into believing numerous falsehoods, and why they are too blind to see how the way they protest is actually hurting their cause. So that's part one. The second part of this is that people in general have the psychological need to feel like they've contributed to their respective communities, but these people don't know how to do that usefully because they're too lazy and too incompetent from an educational standpoint to research and fact-check stuff, despite having college degrees. So they'll just shit everywhere and say, "Look, I'm helping," as they piss off everyone who has to clean up after them. And last, but certainly not least, because I read, I know that the activists are primarily following the tactics of an old book called Rules for Radicals. Now, there's a lot of stuff in this book, but when it comes to protesting, the basic strategy is to go into a high-trust society and do whatever you can to violate the cultural norms, or just in general, be as much of a pain in the ass as possible as a form of protest. It's basically the political version of what those nuisance streamers are doing in Japan to get attention. The hope is that the people in the high-trust society will put up with bullying tactics out of politeness and concede to the demands of the activist. And this was probably a very effective tactic before Elon bought Twitter, and when it was much easier to lie to everyone to manage the bad PR that's a result of this type of protesting. But now that we're in the post-Elon buying Twitter times, the correct answer is to just make an example of these people and try to make them suffer 10 times more than they're trying to make you suffer, because then they'll stop doing it. They only do this stuff because people aren't fighting back, and by the way, just to be clear, they have to protest like this because nobody agrees with them. They are completely tone deaf to how many people on their own political side don't like them.
I'm not even a Republican, but every time someone on the left opens their mouth right now, like, I am this close to becoming a Republican. When I hear the words, "no human is illegal," coming from a group of people that more than likely own fucking passports, like, I'm this close to putting a MAGA hat in my cart. I have very leftist views, okay? I don't like guns. I believe in trans rights. I believe that if you're a consenting adult, you can do whatever the hell you want to with your body. But when you start replacing words like mother with birth giver, and you see people like Gavin Newsom calling his own wife the first partner of California California, like, I can feel my soul applying for an NRA membership. Don't even get me started on 4th of July. Oh my God. Every time that a leftist says that they're not celebrating 4th of July or that 4th of July is canceled, I promise you another piece of American flag clothing gets put in my cart. I mean, maybe at this point I should thank you for reviving my patriotism, because every time you open your mouth, I become more and more of a patriot for this country.
She's wearing the woke uniform and she's like, nah, these guys are too woke for me. I'm out. I'm going to go cleanse myself with an AR-15 and an American flag. I mean, I don't blame her. For one, deporting illegals and border security has always been something that both parties agree on. The recent political disagreement on this is artificial. I'm old enough to remember when amnesty for illegals was a very unpopular right-wing grift from George Bush Jr. But also, it's got to be frustrating as a liberal to watch the most bad faith influencers represent your values.
Hey guys, we gotta talk about ICE.
Right now, ICE agents are
violently detaining, searching,
and arresting our neighbors at alarming rates.
Resistance to the enforcement of this administration's
white supremacist police state
is being met with lethal force
by unqualified individuals who disregard the law and human dignity.
Linda Davis,
Keith Porter Jr., Silverio Villegas Gonzalez,
Isaias Sanchez Barbosa,
Renee Good, and Alex Preti
are unfortunately just a few of ICE's victims.
I'm guessing none of these liars think you'll actually Google the names. Linda Davis was not a victim of ICE. She was killed by an illegal alien who was fleeing from officers that were trying to detain him. Yet another death of an American that could have been prevented by better border security. Keith Porter Jr. was some retard who was firing a rifle into the air of a populated area, which can kill people, by the way, when the bullets come back down. And allegedly, he was unalived as he pointed his rifle at an off-duty ICE officer who I guess was a better shot. Isaias Sanchez Barbosa was a part of an illegal alien caravan and was shot as he was resisting border enforcement. Look how PBS reports this. A Mexican citizen. Everything to hide the fact that he was crossing the border illegally. They just lie constantly. Nothing these people say is true. Silverio Gonzalez was an alcoholic, illegal alien who was likely driving under the influence of cocaine and was shot in retaliation as he drove his car into a cop who was trying to arrest him. You've got to be fucking kidding me. He had no criminal history. 2 paragraphs ago, you said he was driving under the influence, or heavily implied it, and you said he had signs of alcoholism and a history of reckless driving. So he probably was regularly driving under the influence. And that's not all. It says here that he had just dropped his kids off minutes before the stop. So you mean to tell me that he got caught with like a crack pipe? I mean, I'm guessing it's something like that, considering that they were vague about what drug-related items he had on him. So he has hard drugs in his system and gets caught with drug paraphernalia minutes after he dropped his kids off at school. Father of the year, right? I can't imagine why anyone would want him deported. Now, believe it or not, it gets worse. In the article, there's an anchor baby congresswoman defending Silverio's actions named Delia Ramirez who said last year in Spanish that she's a Guatemalan before she's an American. Saying shit like that should get you thrown out of Congress. That's treason. Can you see why my demeanor against these people has gone from more neutral in the past to now more hostile? Finding out the amount that they knowingly lie when you research their claims will make you hate them. To be clear, I'm not talking about people like Shoe on Head who tries to accurately report the news from a left-leaning standpoint. When I talk about people like Noah Sampson or Nicole Raffi, I'm saying that their research is so negligent that I can only assume that they're knowingly spreading disinformation for money and social media clout. People on the left should consider influencers like this to be traitors who are selling out the reputation and trust in their party for personal gain. And as for the names that were said that I didn't address, maybe don't try to obstruct an arrest and maybe don't resist being detained with your vehicle while an officer is standing in front of it. Death by cop would drop to almost zero if people just stopped resisting arrest and dealt with potential illegal police activity in courts. The amount of lies that these people tell is ridiculous, and when they get caught being malicious or doing outright evil, they'll try to prey on people's sympathy to get out of it. This is why Twitter users are posting free-run memes to describe them. It's a pretty accurate metaphor because you'll have like a woman try to trip a cop while he's running at full speed in pursuit, which could have injured him pretty badly if he didn't dodge it. But when they go to arrest her for assault, she says, "Help, I'm a victim."
I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to.
Put your head behind it.
Help me.
Fortunately, someone caught it on camera. But the more we make an example out of people who are being abusive and the more we set the record straight when they try to lie, the less we'll have to put up with this category of person in the future. I mean, I wouldn't even call them liberals. Actual liberals probably hate these people because they make them look bad. These people can't even be honest about their own base desires, so they have to do all these crazy mental gymnastics to justify their life circumstances.
I know that there's a new movement going around in like the body acceptance sphere that is called categories, and what it describes is the different levels of privilege you have based on how fat you are. And so there's things like small fat, mid fat, super fat, and death fat.
Can you tell me what category of fat I fit in?
So it's based on your shirt size. Okay. So if you are a 1 or 2X, you are small fat. 3 to 4X, you are mid fat. 5 to 6X, you are super fat. So someone in a small fat category may not struggle getting on an airplane, but someone in a mid fat or super fat may not be able to use even the airplane extender. So that's where that comes in, and like the privilege levels of like what fat means to different people.
Didn't Ozempic get rid of these people? I thought this was out of meta. The funny thing though is that these are the same people who will talk about how we have to get rid of oppressive hierarchies brought on by capitalism. But biologically speaking, humans have an inherent desire to try to rank high on some sort of hierarchy. So in the very next argument, to satisfy their need for status, they'll create their own system where being the most useless person puts you at the top. You see, this person is a super fat, therefore they have the most points on the oppression hierarchy.
You said privilege, right? Like, so if somebody is less fat, then them being able to get onto an airplane is a privilege, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Then they'll follow these types of arguments up with a classy platitude about how they don't like racism or sexism, while also telling you about how you have to vote for someone because they're black or a woman, like this movie trailer does.
Who are you guys voting for? Obama. Hillary. She'd be the first woman president. He'd be the first black president.
The real question, though, is how do we avoid being this cringe? How do we prevent people from being like this outside of letting deserving individuals find out? Well, I think we can, in part, begin by understanding where these people are coming from and their psychology, because as much as they want to pretend that they're nonconformist and not like everybody else and they can go against human biology, what's actually going on here is that they're acting out because they have human needs that aren't being met in their regular lives. So to get those needs met, they go to these counterproductive protests and act out in these ways because people don't value them or pay attention. They end up finding value by teaming up with other undesirables, and they get people to pay attention to them by screaming or blocking roads. Also, understand that people like this don't make changes to become likable because they have all sorts of limiting beliefs where they think they can change things merely by wishing they were different.
I also wanted to make a point of the very first thing that was said over here during this prompt is that people that do not go to the gym or have like a healthy lifestyle are lazy. So far from beyond what I actually live. I work a lot. I put a lot of time and energy into the career that I have. And to think that someone can take a look at me from across the room and say she's lazy because of the way that I look is so sad. I'm mad at that.
Remember how I said that mental illness is about not being able to deal with reality on reality's terms? The reality is that people do assume that you're lazy, and to an extent they're right because you're an addict. A part of being a hard worker is a willingness to spend time learning new information and a willingness to change, and being super obese is evidence that you aren't doing that in a very crucial area. Personally, I don't consider anyone to be a hard worker until they've maxed out their day to be so full of work that they have to dedicate time to looking for faster ways to do things just so they can have healthy work hours. I mean, it sure as hell is hard work to dig a deep hole with a spoon instead of a shovel, but digging that hole with a spoon doesn't make you a hard worker, it makes you an idiot. And there are a lot of people out there shoveling with spoons, overworking themselves, and sacrificing time with their family and friends because they don't want to watch a few-minute workflow video on YouTube. The point I'm making here is that the reason that these people become annoying is because no one wants to deal with them in their personal lives. And I think that's due to not knowing a lot of useful information. One of the biggest reasons that people do messed up things or evil stuff is because they're useless to those around them, which makes them a burden, and doing bad things is the only way they can get ahead. So if you want to reduce the number of people who are like this, then outside of making the appropriate people find out when it's deserved, the answer is to empower yourself with such good information through hard work, discipline, and research, so that for one, you've taken care of yourself, and so that two, your presence alone will inspire other people to make themselves better. I mean, also have a family, stick together, and treat your kids well, that'll help. However, if being outstanding by itself doesn't automatically inspire people, then at least you'll have incredibly specific and effective advice so that when the time does come, you can enlighten people and snap them out of their shitty ideals by getting them to believe that they can make their lives better. Really, people just need to believe that they can make their situation better, and then you won't have to say that much because they'll do all the investigation themselves to the extent that their focus becomes self-improvement and giving back to others instead of focusing on some dumb protest at Trader Joe's. Anyway, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.